Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today I'm going to teach you how to create ghostly Halloween text in Photoshop. Now, a couple of things to get out of the way right up front. Number one, I'm using Photoshop CC 2015. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, some of the effects may not work as expected. And second, I'm using Windows. So if you're using a Mac, whenever I say hit the Control key on your keyboard, that means hit the Command key. And when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started by creating a brand new document. Let's hit Control N on our keyboard to bring up the new image dialog box. And let's rename this as Ghost Text. And the size of our image today will be 3,840 pixels by 2,160 pixels, 150 pixels per inch, RGB color. The background contents, we're going to make sure that they're black. So click on the little color icon and make it all black. Then we're going to use Adobe RGB 1998 and square pixels. When you're done, hit OK, and we're ready to really begin. Now, we want to make sure that our colors our foreground and background colors are the default black and white. Now you can get there by clicking on this little icon of black and white, or you can hit D on the keyboard to bring up the default colors of black and white. Once we've got that, we want to create a brand new layer in our layers palette. So let's hit Control Alt Shift and N on the keyboard to create a new layer. Double click on that layer and let's name this as Clouds. Once you're done with that, we're going to go up here to Filter, Render, and Clouds. And we now have clouds. Now you can hit Control F, or you can go up here to Filter and then hit this little clouds here to repeat the filter if you'd like. So if you don't like, for example, the way that this clouds look, you can always hit Control F a couple of more times to bring up more and more clouds, and they randomize a little bit better. So that looks good to me. Now what we want to do is we want to change this clouds layer opacity to 50%. So let's change this to 50%. See, there we go. Next thing that we want to do is we want to change our foreground color to a nice kind of ghostly blue color. So the color that I've chosen is 87 B3 FF, which is a kind of a ghostly looking color. And then when you want to create a brand new layer, now you can go back to Control Alt Shift and N on the keyboard to bring up a new layer, or you can go down here on the layers palette and click on the new layer icon. Let's rename this as Color. And then we're going to fill that with our foreground color by hitting Alt and Backspace on the keyboard to fill that with the blue color. Then we're going to change the layer mode to Overlay, and we are going to change its opacity to only 30%. Okay, so it looks kind of like a ghostly, creepy blue. Clouds. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new curves adjustment layer above the colors. So go to your adjustment layers, click on curves, and that will bring up your curves adjustment layer. You want to set the right hand one down between the lowest black bar here and the bottom, which would be off. So somewhere around 3/4 of the way through looks good. And then you want to go up here on the upper left of the properties to the mask, and then you want to go to feather, and you want to make the feather 175 so that you've got a nice feather on any selections that you make on the mask. So we're then going to go to our elliptical marquee tool, so you can click up here on marquee and then go down to elliptical marquee, or you can hit Shift and the letter M on your keyboard to swap between elliptical and rectangular marquees. Once you have elliptical, you just want to make a nice selection, something along this, an ellipse that's very long and not very tall. Make sure that it's centered, and once it is centered, you want to then fill that with black by hitting Control and Backspace. Then you want to hit Control D to deselect, and you now have a nice cloud area for your ghost text. Then you want to select all of our background stuff. Oh, one thing I forgot here is our background, which is black, remember. You want to just click on the little lock icon to unlock it and then rename this as black. so that we know that it is our black background. Then you want to select all of them. So click on black and then hold down Shift. Click on the topmost layer, which is curves, and then drag everything down to your folder icon at the bottom of your layers palette to make a group of it. And let's call that whole group background. And we now have our background finished for our text. So let's begin with our text. Now, the font that I am currently using is going to be Curse of the Zombie. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can download that. So let's change our default colors to black and white again by hitting D on our keyboard. See, they changed to black and white. And let's swap them so that white is our foreground by hitting X. So now white is our foreground. And then what we want to do is go to our text tool. So hit T on the keyboard or select the text tool over here on your tool palette. And we want to make sure that the font that we're using is Curse of the Zombie. So go down here and let's find Curse of the Zombie, which would be under C. So Curse of the Zombie, where are you? I know you're here because I use you. There you go. Curse of the Zombie. So we want that to be at 250 points. So let's change this to 250. Sharp, centered. The color should be our foreground color of white, and we're ready to type in our text. So I'm going to type in Pixel Magic, and what I want to do is I want this to be all caps. So we're going to go over here to our character palette, and we're going to click here on the all caps icon, and now we have all caps for our font. Once we've done that, we want to well, I will center this, so everybody should center this into the middle of the document, like so. And then what we want to do is we want to fix any kerning issues that we see. So we hit T on our keyboard to go back to our text tool. Then we put our text cursor in between letters that need to be fixed. And then using the Alt and left and right arrow keys on the keyboard, you can then move the text closer and further apart, should you feel that it is necessary. The E can be a little bit closer, and the L. M, A, G. There we go. This looks pretty good. Very tight and ghostly already. So the way that we're going to make this look very ghostly is we're going to use our layer styles to create a ghostly look, and everything will be done in layer styles. So let's go to our layer styles and let's go to blending options. That's the first thing that we're going to do. And over here where it says fill opacity, we're going to change that to 50% because we want it to be ghostly and semi-transparent. So there we go. Fill opacity is now 50%. Then we're going to go to our bevel and emboss. And the bevel and emboss that we're going to use is going to be a inner bevel, smooth. Our depth is going to be 1%. Direction is down. Size is going to be 60 pixels. The soften is going to be 16 pixels. The angle that we're using, remember to uncheck use global light, is going to be 115 degrees by 30 degrees. Our gloss contour is going to be this guy right here, which is ring. And it's going to be anti-alias, so make sure that that is checked. The highlight mode is going to be linear dodge add. It's going to be pure white. And opacity is going to be 60%. Shadow mode is overlay, and we're using all black, and it's going to be at 100%. The next thing that we're going to use is we are going to use contour over here, and we're going to make sure that the contour is also a ring. Anti-alias is checked, and the range is going to be 50%. Then what we're going to do is in inner shadows. We're going to go down to inner shadow, and we're going to make the blend mode color dodge, and it's going to be pure white. The opacity is going to be 50%. Angle is going to be -90, and make sure again to uncheck use global light. Then we're going to go to distance of 1, choke of 5, size of 40. Our contour is going to be linear, which is our default first contour. Then it's going to be anti-alias is checked. Noise is going to be 0%. Next up, we're going to use satin. So we're going to go down here to satin, and we're going to make it a hard mix mode. The color that we're using is going to be 4A609D, and the opacity that we're using there is going to be at 32%. Our angle is in -135. Distance is going to be 125 pixels. Size is 60 pixels. Contour is going to be this dome. Where is the dome? Back with the dome. There it is. Is that it? That's half round. Where's dome? There it is. Aha, my eyes were not working. It's a cone, sorry. And we're going to use anti-alias is checked, invert is checked. Next up, we are going to use color overlay, and the blend mode is going to be overlay. The color that we're using here is AFC7F7. Opacity that we're using is going to be 100%. Next up is going to be a gradient overlay, and we're going to be using luminosity as the blend mode. Dither is unchecked. Opacity is going to be 60%, and the gradient that we are using is going to be this preset right here, which is blue, red, yellow. Okay, looks like that. Then we're going to make sure reverse is unchecked. The line width layer is checked. The style is linear, and the angle is 90, and the scale is going to be 100%. Next up, we're going to make a pattern overlay, and we're going to make the blend mode normal. The opacity is going to be 100%. The pattern that we are using is going to be parchment, and that can be found, if you don't see it, you can go over here to the sprocket. Well, let me show you. First, you click on this little arrow, then you go to the sprocket, and then you go down here to Artist Surfaces, okay, and you can overwrite them, so you want to just hit OK. And then you want to go down here and find this guy right here, which is parchment. And that is the pattern overlay that we will use. So once you have that, the scale is going to be only 80%, and link width layer is checked. Next up, we're going to make an outer glow to make it look like it's ghostly on the outside. And the blend mode that we're using is screen. The opacity is going to be 100%. The noise will be 4 to give it a little bit of pixelation in there. And the color that we are using is going to be 8ED5FA. And then the technique is going to be precise. The spread is going to be 10. The size is going to be 32. The contour, again, is our linear gradient, our linear contour, and it's the default, so you shouldn't need to change that. Anti-alias is checked. Range is going to be 50%, and jitter is 0%. Once you have all of that, you are done, and we have fairly ghostly looking text. There's a couple of small things that we're going to do next to make it look even more ghostly. So you can click on the little arrow to hide that. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to do some filters to this, but we don't want to rasterize it in case we want to change the text at a later date. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this into a smart object by right-clicking on the text layer and then going to convert to smart object. Once that is done, then we can do some filters to this without causing any real damage. So what we're going to do first is we're going to give this a wave. So we're going to go up here to filter, we're going to go to distort, and we're going to go to wave. Once we are in wave, the thing that we're going to do is we're going to change the number of generators to 10. We're going to make the wavelength is going to be 350 to 700. Then we're going to make the amplitude is going to be 1 to 50. And the scale is 100 to 100. The type that we're going to be using is sine wave. And repeat edge pixels is going to be radio button pressed. So that is going to change the look of this by making the letters look kind of ghostly, distorted in a way that looks kind of ghostly and cool. But they still don't look ghostly because when you think of a ghost, you kind of think of it being incorporeal, kind of faded out in certain places. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer mask to our text layer by going down on the layers palette and adding a text layer mask. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our gradient tool by hitting G on the keyboard or by going to the gradient tool over here. And we're going to make sure that we are in black to white. Okay, we're going to make sure that we are in linear. Mode is going to be normal and opacity is 100%. I'm sorry, I forgot. You have to reverse this so that it is white first and black second. Then you're going to click here and you're going to hold down Shift, and we are then going to go to roughly the bottom and let go, and we now have ghostly looking Halloween text. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe. I do new tutorials every Tuesday. And I'm also now on Facebook, so feel free to friend me on Facebook. Once again, this is Geekman signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.